Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is set to release at the top of next month, and my RPG excitement is nearing an all-time high with this and Project Octopath so close now. If you're a fan of this genre, you might know it can feel sort of stale and recycled sometimes, but it looks like Xenoblade 2 could be one of the most original RPGs that we've seen in the last few years, even when compared to its prequel, which was pretty awesome in itself. After watching the Xenoblade Direct this week, I found myself literally fiending for a taste of this unique action RPG gameplay, and I eventually returned to other titles that I played that might scratch the itch a little bit, at least initially. This thought has turned into a brainstorm, and I'm here to give you some suggestions on some games that might feel similar while you wait for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Number 1. Dragon Age Origins. Dragon Age was the game that started BioWare's current reign as one of the top American game developers in the last decade. Following the success of Mass Effect in 2007, BioWare was purchased by Electronic Arts, or EA for short as you might know them, and started working on a fantasy RPG experience to match their very successful futuristic space RPG. Since then, there have been several different Mass Effect and Dragon Age games, and most of them are often heralded as the best RPGs of their respective years. Dragon Age Origins was the first entry in the series and is definitely my favorite overall. The world and the story presented here is really what makes the game shine. This was one of the first 3D games with a massive open world to explore, and you'll spend a lot of time just wandering around, exploring and doing side quests. The gameplay itself is also fun and very similar to what you'll be seeing in Xenoblade 2. The combat isn't turn-based, but you're not necessarily controlling every swing your character makes. Upon initiating combat, you'll begin to auto-attack, then press buttons to activate cooldown-based special abilities. Then as you do more damage, you'll gain more power to activate the better cooldown-based abilities and do more damage there. While there isn't anything like the blade system here, there are several different classes and characters to recruit and play as over time, and you can even have 4 different characters being playable at once at any given time. This helps the semi-stale combat system feel a little more dynamic when you're controlling all of these characters with vastly different abilities. There's also a pretty basic loot system here to start you getting used to finding and using items, as well as just managing your gold in general. Dragon Age is definitely one of the pinnacles of American RPGs and is really worth a play for fans of Xenoblade and just fans of video games in general. Number 2, Tales of Zestiria. Out of all the games on this list, I'd say that this one is probably the most similar to Xenoblade 2 in the literal sense. The Tales of series is a staple of the RPG genre, with the first being released in 1995 and receiving a total of 15 sequels since then. One of the more recent titles, called Zestiria for the PS4, is definitely one of my favorites. This was the first Tales game to feature more of an open world than previous entries. In Tales, you're given a party made up of 2 different character types, being humans and seraphs. If you're even semi-familiar with the Xenoblade combat system, you can basically look at these as a driver and a blade. Each human has to be linked to a seraph, and vice versa. And it's the same type of combat where you're auto-attacking and waiting for things to come off cooldown to use your abilities. There's also quite a lot of combo attacks to build up between the 2 character types, which really just screams everything we've been hearing about the new Xenoblade system. Another big similarity here is the inclusion of open world battles. In most games like this, your character is going to run around in a separate open world, then when they engage an enemy, they phase out into a different environment upon initiating the actual battle with different character models and world models. In Tales of Zestiria though, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, your characters battle in the same world that they run around in, meaning there's no cutoffs or loading screens between battles. This doesn't sound like a huge difference, but really feels immersive when you're battling enemy after enemy after enemy. The story in this game is definitely not the best. It's actually really generic and boring, and some of the dungeons are a little too linear in contrast to the giant open world that you're normally exploring, but the combat is super fun, and the game is definitely worth a try. Number 3, World of Warcraft Legion. I wanted to put some sort of unique, maybe less popular MMORPG on this list, like Black Desert or Guild Wars 2, but in the end, I decided that World of Warcraft really is the pinnacle of what an MMORPG can be. There's a whole lot less of a story, upon first glance at least, with this game, and a lot less guidance and direction as well, but the combat system is super similar and can definitely help you prepare for what to expect with Xenoblade 2. The combat here is similar to the last two. You're stuck with your auto attacks, and then you have some cooldown based abilities to chain in the appropriate order. There's several different classes here, and all of them operate differently, but a few of them operate like Xenoblade in that you'll gain power from doing damage, and then use the power to activate even better abilities to do more damage. World of Warcraft takes this a step further even with the inclusion of cooperative dungeons and raids where you work together with a group of classes with different abilities to achieve a common goal. This core player versus environment combat is really only the heart of WoW. I mean, there's player versus player, millions of collectible mounts, pets, and achievements to unlock, and even a crazy in-game economy to try and conquer. The main point for my inclusion of this game on this list, though, is the auto-attack based combat system. Blizzard have been perfecting this system for almost 15 years, and I think it'll really help you appreciate the combat in Xenoblade 2 that much more. Legion is the latest expansion pack to be released for this game, and it's also one of the most acclaimed by fans and critics alike in the last 10 years. I definitely recommend picking it up if you haven't tried it yet. Number 4, Bravely Default. Bravely Default is different from all the other games on this list in that it's actually a traditional turn-based RPG. Instead of the auto-attack combat system I've been talking about for most of this video, this follows the classic you move, then I move, then you move, and so on type of thing. I wouldn't necessarily call this an open world game. You follow a fairly linear path, although there is quite a bit of overworld exploration to be done. The story is great as well, but the main reason I included this here is the Brave Point system. Every time you complete a turn in this game, you'll earn Brave Points that can be saved up and then spent to unleash more powerful abilities than you could before. While the combat is turn-based, the gradual build-up system is very similar to that in Xenoblade. When you play all the way through this game, you'll eventually learn how to pace yourself from spending these points and I guess just the appropriate ways to save and spend in general. Playing Bravely Default is a very different experience from Xenoblade 2, but can definitely help you prepare to pace yourself and time your power spending correctly. Number 5, Ni no Kuni. Ni no Kuni, in my opinion, is one of the greatest RPGs of all time. The game was originally released on Nintendo DS, but the upgraded or enhanced version for the PS4 is probably the one that you'd want to pick up. This is a 3D action RPG with a beautiful cel-shaded world. This game features quite a few animated cutscenes as well, which were all produced by the famed Studio Ghibli. So if you're thinking this game looks similar to that style, you were definitely right. I'm sure the Studio Ghibli production is enough to have many fans of Japanese entertainment ready to play this game already, but it also has quite a bit to offer in the gameplay department. There's a big open world to freely explore, with side quests as well as a main linear story to follow, of course, if you so desire. The combat system is roughly similar to the other titles on this list, with the main difference being the main gimmick of the game as well. This game is sort of like Pokemon or Shin Megami Tensei, where you'll level up your character, but in addition to that, you can also capture and then level up different creatures as well, and in this game they're called familiars. These are basically your Pokemon or your demons from Shin Megami Tensei. There's a whole lot of these to capture, and none of them are absolutely necessary, so you really have the freedom to play how and with whom you'd like to. This game is almost perfect all around. The presentation, story, and gameplay are all AAA quality, trust me. While the combat isn't exactly like that in Xenoblade 2, the presentation and gameplay will really give you a very similar feel. RPGs are my favorite genre of game, and they have been since I was super young. The problem with that is that a lot of RPGs tend to feel exactly like the last, which is why games like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 get me so excited. It looks like this game is going to take the best elements of similar titles and put them together with some new ideas to create an innovative experience unlike any other RPG we've played before. For the most part, I think the other games on this list did a good job of achieving this goal as well, and I hope it might have helped you decide on a similar game you might enjoy before Xenoblade drops next month. Now, if I missed a game that might be even more similar than all of the games on this list combined, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to know. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel for the latest content available. This is Max from Max Culture, and thank you so much for watching.